Everybody, as we go to the chitas of today, we're holding a chumash, we're holding the chapter in the third reading in the portion of chukas, law of the para aduma. We're holding the third day. Oops, no, wrong day. We're holding the second day, the second reading, the Monday. Chapter 19, verse 18. Then you take the hyssop, a tub of a mayim, you dip it in water. Ishtar, a pure person. The al oil. He sprinkles it on the oil, on the tent, and all the vessels. Al nefashis, and all the people. Ashahayusham that were there. Anybody who touched a dead person, or a dead, or a caver, or a grave. And the ritual clean person shall sprinkle the unclean person on the third day, and the seventh day. And he'll bring purity on the seventh day. The chid is begoddess on the seventh day. After he gets sprinkles, he washes his clothes. And he goes to the mikvah of a Torah ba'orev, and he's cleaned on the seventh day at night. So Rashi says, this consummates the cleansing. If a person, God forbid, is unclean, and he doesn't go through this purity process, and that person will be cut off from the Jewish nation if he goes to the Beis Hamikdash. Yes, Mikdash Hashem Timeh. Because when he comes to the Beis Hamikdash in impure status, he basically impurifies the Beis Hamikdash. He may need because they didn't sprinkle upon him this purity water. Tamehu, he is unclean. Now she says, you have expression over here, Mikdash and Mishkan. If the sanctuary is stated here, why is the Mishkan in verse 13 stated? So the answer is that if it say the Mishkan, I would say the person is punished for cutting off only if he enters the Mishkan in a state of uncleanness, because the Mishkan was anointed with the anointing oil. But if he enters a temple in a state of uncleanness, he may not be punished as a temple. It was not anointed with that anointing oil. There was not commanded to anoint the Beis Hamikdash. If we would say the sanctuary, denoting the temple, I would say that only entering the temple in a state of uncleanness would be punished by cutting off, because the sanctity is permanent. The Mishkan was an unpermanent situation. But to enter the Mishkan, the state of uncleanness, he would not be punished because the sanctity is temporary. Therefore, the Torah uses both expressions, Mikdash and Mishkan. Verse 21, this will be for an everlasting law. And a person that sprinkles shall also sanctify himself. And the one who touches this water will become tamei ad ha'orev. Now she says, our rabbi said that the one who sprinkles is actually richly clean. But this teaches us that the one who carries purifying water becomes defiled with a stringent uncleanliness. For even the clothes he's wearing is contaminated, unlike the one who merely touches it. Taylor uses the word mazeh, one who sprinkles, to teach us that the water does not contaminate until an amount of water adequate for sprinkling. This is you have to go into the Gemara Masechta Nida and Yuma. Gotta go look up the Gemara there and the Nida, etc. Because over there the Gemara fills out from all these psukim, all these laws, who exactly becomes tamei. Because that's the paradox of this water, that it purifies the impure and it impurifies the pure. And again, the one who touches the water becomes impure, but he doesn't have to keep his gugad. He has to go to the mikveh, but he doesn't have to clean his clothes. Verse 22. Whatever an unclean one touches shall become unclean. Nefesh and the gas titma da'orev. And anyone who touches him shall become clean and come clean in the evening. Now she says, meaning this unclean one who is defiled by a corpse touches Whatever a person touches, it makes something else impure. A nefesh and a gas, betumas mes. We're talking about a person that became impure with the dead body. Titma da'erev. Here we derive that a corpse is the supreme source of contamination. In the Hebrew, these are the words in the Gemara terminology. Avi avos hatuma, the father of tuma. A dead body is considered avi avos hatuma. The most extreme aspect of impurity in the world is a dead person, a corpse, where one touching it becomes one. So one who touches it becomes the av hatuma. So this is the primary of primaries. The one who touches it becomes an av. We have avi avos hatuma. You have an av hatuma. And then you have a rishon l'tuma, you have a shein l'tuma, you have a shlishi l'tuma, you have a revi l'tuma. There are 5 different levels. Avi avos hatuma is the highest level of impurity, which is the dead body. You have an avatuma, you have which means a person that touches it becomes a primary. You have a rishon l'tuma, a shein l'tuma, etc. This is based on pattern according to literal meaning. Laws associated. I've described the Homiletic interpretations. You can go to Moshe Hadarshan, which explains by the Moshe Hadarshan. I'm saying which follows. Rashi goes back to the beginning of the parsha, explains it according to the Moshe Hadarshan. Yikra lecha comes to teach us from this way we run from their own possession, just as they remove from their own golden earrings from the gold calf, so they shall bring a cow of their own possession. Paraduma. This is compared to his son whose maidservant who soiled the king's palace. They said to him, let his mother come and clean up the mess. Similarly, the cow is coming to clean up the mess of the paraduma, of the calf of the paraduma. Aduma. Here Rashi says, the beginning said nobody has a reason to the paraduma. Now Rashi gives some kind of a reason to the paraduma. Aduma al shemi yudmukala. Rashi says, why was it specifically a red calf? Our sins proved to be red as a crimson dye. God will turn it into white. Timima, why did it need to be perfect, this calf? Because it was not brought as a sacrifice, it was burnt. So why did it need to be perfect? I can understand it brought as a sacrifice, it needed to be perfect. This thing was not even brought into the Beis HaMikdash. It was burnt outside the temple. So this is an allusion to Israelites who are perfect, but became blemished. Let this come and atone for them so that they gain their perfection. What does it mean that the yoke is not allowed to even come upon it? Just as they cast off themselves the yoke of heaven, this will come to forgive their casting off the yoke of heaven. Eliezer Kayin. Why does it come to Eliezer the Kayin? Why does he need to be involved in it? Just as the assembly against Aaron, the golden calf, who was a Kayin to make the calf, but because Aaron made the calf, this service was not performed by him. It was done by Eliezer the Kayin. It was done by his second in command. Beside of a sapara, and he shall burn the calf. Why do you burn this calf? Thus, like the egel was burnt. 8 erev v'shnishalas. Why do you have this cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson wool? These 3 types of objects correspond to the 3,000 men who fell before the sin of the golden calf. The cedar is the highest of tree, and the hyssop is the lowest of them all. This symbolizes that one who's high, standing, who acts haughtily and sins, should lower himself like a hyssop, and a worm like a selas, and then he'll gain atonement. The Mishmeres, she says, thus as a transgression of the calf is preserved throughout the generations for retribution, God says that I'll always remember the golden calf, for there's no reckoning punishment, which is not included the reckoning of the golden calf. As it says, on the day that I'll reckon account of the sins of them, I'll bring the sin to account. So thus the calf defiles those who are involved in it. So does the cow render unclean all those involved with it. And just as they were cleansed to the ashes, as it says, he scattered the ashes of the burnt calf upon the surface of the water, so with the cow. They shall take from the unclean person the ashes and purify. This is all in the Medrash. So here Rashi gives a beautiful interpretation according to the Medrash of this whole para aduma. But ultimately, we shouldn't forget the first Rashi, that this is a chukah. The para aduma is ultimately, even though Rashi does give the whole reasoning of the para aduma, that it was connected to the golden calf they made in the desert. And here Rashi, but ultimately we all know, Rashi says there's no reasoning to the para aduma, to the red heifer. We're holding chapter 20, verse number 1. And the entire congregation of children of Israel arrived at the midbar of Tsin. In the first month, Kadesh, and the people settled in the place of Kadesh. Thomas Miriam, and Miriam died over there in Kadesh at the Kavasham, and she was buried there. Now she says, Kol Ada Shlema, the entire congregation, the ones who destined to die in the desert had already died, and these were assigned to life. That means that this pasuk is holding already later on. This same Mikta Mukvatera comes out because this pasuk is holding much later on, and that's why Rashi says the next Rashi, Lama Nichsa Parshas Miriam Misas Miriam LaParshas Para Aduma. What is the connection? Because this happened much later on. Because it wants to teach you or something. Ma'akar b'mechaprin, just like sacrifice, bring atonement. Af misas tzaddik mechaperes. So too, the passing of a tzaddik brings a lot of kapara in the world. Thomas Shomamian, now she says she too died with the kiss of God. All of the siblings of Amram, Moshe, Aaron, Miriam, were all tzaddikim gemurim. They all died min shika shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why doesn't it say in the mouth of God? Because it's not respectful speaking on high to mention this by her. Concerning Aaron, it says it openly. And we know concerning Moshe Rabbeinu also, he died Api Hashem. Verse 2, and there was not enough water for the people because Miriam gave them from the water of the Beit Shel Miriam, the rock of Miriam. And they gathered on Meshad. From here we learn, Rashi says, for 40 years in the well was the merit of Miriam. So this happened at the end of the 40 years of the journey. Yaravam min Moshe. And the people quarreled with Moshe, if only we would have died the death of our brothers before the Lord. I said, which because the death of thirst, starvation, no water, thirst. With the death of our brothers from the plague, this teaches that the death of thirst is more dreadful than the death of a plague. Begava, Shashi says, this is a noun like the Misas Achenu with the brother's death. That is the way they died. It's incorrect to explain the meaning when our brothers died. It's the way our brothers died. Why'd you bring to the whole congregation of God to the desert? This desert, that we should all die there, us and our cattle. Why have you taken us out of Egypt? The Havi son to bring us to this evil place. It's not a place where any seeds or figs or trees or grapevines or pomegranate trees. There's no water to drink. And Moshe moved away from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. And they fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared before them. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now continue the Tanya today. We continue the 9th chapter of Shara Yichud Ve'emunah. And we continue. Alter Rebbe is explaining the concept, just as he ended off yesterday, the concept of the separation. I'm sorry, the separation of the way our chachma, that we have chachma, akulam b'chachma sisa by ourselves. Our chachma is the highest level. So too, ultimately, the chachma of the Eibishter, kulam b'chachma sisa, everything is created through chachma, and that is chachma datzilis. So even the chachma datzilis is so far from us, but ultimately, chachma, the world of Atzilis, is ultimately connected to us because it's the first beginning of creation. Chachma, the Eibishter, is far beyond the Chachma of Atzilus, as we can understand. Because in so much, it's not within the power, as within the power of a created being, to comprehend only the descent from level of wisdom, from the level of wisdom, shisam, that they can comprehend. If you know Kabbalah, if you learn Kabbalah, you learn Chassidus, you can reach up to Chachma Atzilus if you want, if you have the learning capacity to reach up, to comprehend even to the world of the wisdom of the world of Tzilus. That's as far as you can get and understand the Seder Ashtalshlus from the world of Atzilus, the Madega Shri Asiya Shvela. You can figure out, and you can even make a chart of the descent of the worlds from the world of Bria, from the world of Atzilus till the world of Asiya. It's possible to create this cause and effect kind of a situation, comprehend it, picture it. Therefore we say, in relation, though you can't make a picture from the Holy One, blessed be He. You can't understand that connection. We know that self-understood, the Eibush is above that. How do you connect Oir Ein Sof with Chachma Datzilis? That's not something you can create a concept. You just know that the Ein Sof is Oir Ein Sof. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above Atzilus. How the Chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes into Chachma Atzilus, it's not something that you can comprehend, because they're not in the same situation. There's no comprehension in how these two things connect to each other. Because by the Eibishter, Chachma Atzilus is like a physical action to him, because it's creation. We thus use the example as simple. We use this example simply because there's no greater descent in the realm of human experience than the descent of wisdom to action. So we all can understand that there's such a far reach, even in ourselves, the difference between what's in our mind and the physical thing. There's two different realities. As the Alter Rebbe explained before, that you cannot take the physical thing and put it in your mind. You can put it in your mind in a spiritual way, but you cannot put it in a physical way. That's how far. So there's no unity between a spiritual concept and a physical concept. No unity between my mind and the thing itself, because they're opposites. My mind is spiritual in comparison to the physical thing. So even though I can picture it, I can imagine it, I cannot take this physical thing and put it in my mind, physically in my mind, because there's a vast difference between the spiritual and the physical. So Allah Kam V'Kama, the Eibishter to Chachma Atzilus, by him, it's pashut like a gashmis. So we have to understand that the highest understanding that we as humans can understand, by God, that's a physical concept. To him, it's all creation. It's all what's in my mind, so it's already a creation. And that to even say, the Eibishter is great. That's like a ridiculous statement itself, right? God is exalted. That's what we say. We do say in our davening, Akel HaGadol HaGibah. And the Gemara says, how do you call the Eibishter HaGadol HaGibah? Only because the pasuk says so. The reason why we use these words is because it says in the verse, and we use God's words Himself. And as the Alter Rebbe says, the Torah talks in the way of man. But even to express that God is great, that's an embarrassing statement to the Eibishter that He's great. Because what do I understand what greatness is? So I'm imagining God is great, greater than your father's bigger than my father, whatever. I understand greatness in the highest greatest, so I say God is greater. But it's like it's not a concept to say on God, because His greatness is far beyond what we understand greatness even. As Alter Rebbe explained many times, that to understand the chesed, it's impossible to understand the chesed of the Eibishter. To understand the chesed of God, how are we supposed to understand God? God, because even say God is exalted. Whatever I think Chachma is, He's a bigger Chachma, He's a greater Chachma, very great there above the level. And therefore, in reality, it's not at all appropriate to ascribe to Him any particular. Even that's why. Remember that Ivan says you can't even say such a thing. That's like he called it. It's kfira. Did he call the God Chachma? That was his argument with the Rambam. To call God Chachma that's a disgraceful statement to say, because God is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's separate, above anything. To give Him any dimension, any name, any label, it's simply wrong. Even in a very lofty and sublime form. Meaning, even by doing so we mean to express how great He is. You're not allowed to say such things. Even to say that God is beyond the capacity of higher and lower creatures to comprehend His wisdom, in essence, yippee do. That is also a disgraceful thing to say to Him. Even this negative reference to wisdom is inappropriate, simply inappropriate. Because comprehension, even comprehension with a negative, what it's not, pertains and applies to matters of wisdom and intellect. Whether it's to say that I could understand it, or I can't not understand it, because of the profundity, the greatness of the concept. So it's all a concept. Whether it's a concept that I understand, whether it's a concept that's elusive to me, it's still a concept. But the Eibishter is self-understood. The Eibishter you can't even call Seichel. So really, you can't even say on God, I can't comprehend God. I understand God, what I don't know. Because God is not in the realm of comprehension to say He's above comprehension. And the one who states on God that He's impossible to comprehend Him, that's like one who's saying, I cannot comprehend God, is like he's saying on some lofty and profound concept that it cannot be touched with his hands because of the depth of the concept. He can't touch with his hand because you can't touch an elusive concept. It's not that, I can't touch the elusive concept because it's such a lofty concept. No, because it's not in the same reality. So you cannot touch a spiritual concept. You can understand maybe a spiritual concept. You can imagine a spiritual concept. But you can't say, I can't touch it. It would be a stupid statement. It's not a right statement. I can't touch a spiritual concept. You can't touch a spiritual concept because it's spiritual. The Eibishter, you can't even say he can't be comprehended. Like he should have been comprehended. He could have been comprehended. Maybe somebody greater can comprehend it. Eibishter is not comprehended. He's not in the realm of comprehension. God is not in the realm of comprehension. To be comprehended or to not be comprehended. Whoever hears this will mock him and say, stupid statement. It's a ridiculous statement to say that I cannot touch a spiritual thing. I can't put a spiritual thing under a microscope. It can't, because it's spiritual. And anything that is seen on the microphone is physical. So it's a joke. Why? Because touch. The second you use the word touch, and it needs to be a physical thing. A physical thing can be touched. A spiritual thing cannot be touched. Physically. Exactly so. The level of intellect and comprehension in relation to God is like physical. Comprehension, the word comprehension, the word intellect is all physical to him, is all like physical to him because he's above and beyond that. He's not higher. That's the point of it. It's not that he's higher. The Eibishter has a higher comprehension. You can't even use the word comprehension. It's considered as actual physical action. For even the comprehension of the superior spiritual intellectuals in the higher world, even the level of the supernal wisdom, going back all the way to the world of Atzilus, Chachma Atzilus, which even to us in our world, Chachma Atzilus is like far behind our comprehension, which gives life to them all. That's why Chachma Atzilus gives life to everything, that's why it's hard for us to comprehend even life. Forget about Chachma Atzilus. It's considered in relation to only one best to be, to God. Chachma Atzilus is like a physical thing. As he said before, you made everything with wisdom. So wisdom makes something. Wisdom is connected to the made. Wisdom is connected to the action. And by God, the action and wisdom are all the same. So all creation is rooted within wisdom of the world of Atzilus and Kabbalah. Nevertheless, even the supernal wisdom of Atzilus is considered as an action in relation to God. That's why, again, by God, how do we express God? Kadosh, Baruch Hu, blessed. Kadosh is holy, blessed be He. Holy, holy one. What means holy? Holy means that God separated. Separated. Totally a different reality. Therefore, God transcends it infinitely. It is thus impossible to say God can or cannot be apprehended through intellect. That's why the question, there's a famous question, can God create something he can't pick up, is a ridiculous question. Because you only can talk to a person who can create something that he can pick up or not pick up. The concept of pickup is a creation. And so much as intellect and wisdom are not at all in the means by which God can be grasped. But ultimately, the Torah writes the Eibush is a Chacham. So you're going to scream at me and you're going to say, what do you mean? The Torah says Chacham. The Torah is called, in the Torah we call God a Chacham. We call God a Chesed. Rachamim. We give a lot of names to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. We have 7 names of God. And also, as I said, the Rambam coins the Eibishter as the concept of Chacham. Self-understood. It's only these expressions are to just tell you he's the source of wisdom. Because everything emanates from God. And ultimately, Chachma, the world of Atzilus, emanates from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the world of Atzilus, the Chachma Atzilus. And so too, God's called merciful, the Chassid, and God's called kind, and God's called pious. Even though He's utterly transcends mercy and kindness. He's the source of mercy and kindness. Everything comes from Him. And so too, regarding all the attributes of God, is that they're the source of it. God is referred to by names of other attributes because He's the source of their attributes. They all proceed and emanate from Him. And now you have the question, the $1 million question. How's an infinite, how does things emanate from Him? If He's far beyond them, how does these things emanate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Man of the nature, the flow of emanation, how and what? Meaning, how does intellect and the motive attribute emanate from Ein Sof, infinity, which is totally transcendent, exactly what they are. And after they have emanated from Him, they're wholly united with Him. So how do they don't lose their identity? So Yedu lamaskilim. is known to those who have seichel. As we savants, those who have intellect, those who can comprehend. The Dailem Even, as the Alter Rebbe says many times, it's known. I've said enough to those who have understanding. What a deep Tanya we've learned today. Alter Rebbe, on the bottom of it, he writes a note of the Rebbe on this Dailem Maskilim. The Rebbe writes, and this explains that the greater length in many places of Chassidus, you can go in depth in this concept of what is the meaning of the way the Seder the Shtalshelus works from Oire and Seif until this world can be explained, is explained in many, many Maimorim, all the way from the Alter Rebbe till the Rebbe, and you can go and learn it. So every person can become a maskil, so to say. Every person can become a person that has understanding. Today is the second day of the month, which is the chapters 10 to chapter 17. If you do those 8 chapters, you would do the chitas of the day. Wish you all a wonderful day. Midshem, I'll see you all tomorrow. 8 o'clock, we'll continue the chitas of the day. I want to mention that I'm going to the Oyel. If anybody wants to send me a letter, please send it to me to my email, zalmanbucket@yahoo.com. And I'll bring it to the Oyel because I'm going tonight to the Oyel. And I'll be there tonight and tomorrow. And I'll put it at the Oyel tonight or tomorrow, actually. I'll put it at the Oyel for you. And we know that the tzaddikim on the day of the passing, the Rebbe Chassidus explains Kabbalah. The Rebbe would explain always about his father-in-law that on the day of the yahrzeit, his neshama is revealed in a greater way, and therefore it's an opportune time to ask a tzaddik for brachas, on this day. So again, if you want to send me a letter, main thing is to put your name, your mother's name, or anybody else that you're sending their name and the mother's name, and write in any language and what you're comfortable with. Send it to my email, zalmanbuket, ZALMANBUKIET @yahoo.com, and I will put it on the Rebbe's gravesite in Mitch Hashem tomorrow.
Tomorrow, who's doing chitas?
I'm going to do chitas or Rabbi
Kramer at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, Mitch Hashem.
Okay.